co-founder and shaper, Jimmy Redmon, joining us. He's live from their offices in Encinitas. He's going to be discussing their 2017 wakesurf lineup. And let's say there's a lot to talk about. There's new shapes, new pro models, new core constructions, and even new honeycomb core carbon fins. So we're stoked on the 2017 Liquid Force lineup, and we think you should be too. So start it off. I'll let Jimmy introduce himself.
Hi, everybody. Hey, thanks for joining in on this. I'm super stoked that Chad called and gave me the opportunity to explain to you why we're so excited about our new 2017 line. I mean, you can't see this because I'm in the office. We don't want to be in this office because right across the street is the beach. And most of us are across the street instead of here. We're all surfers. And this year we were able to put more of that energy into our wake surf line than ever before.
Sweet. So can you give everyone a little background on your shaping experience and your time with Liquid Force, Jimmy?
Sure. Gosh, I started, I think the first board I ever shaped, I was 16 years old. It sucked, but I loved, just making your own thing, thinking about it and creating something fresh and then going out and riding it. It kind of, it lit a fire in my soul. And then fast forward, I kept banging it out in college. You can't shape, that's not a real job. You'll never make a living. And, I ended up back at square one, making boards, and found out that that's what I really loved. I got a job early growing up making boards at a factory when I was going to college. So I learned from some really talented guys this is a long time ago. This is first board I shaped was 75. And that's before Shape 3D. That's before CNCing blanks. That's before close tolerance blanks, where you used to be able to get blanks that are really close to the finished shape. So, I had to learn basically how to make a board from a big block of foam, how to picture the board inside this slab. In many cases, creating your own rocker line, starting from scratch, and spending hours, just to make one board because there were no curves in the block of foam whatsoever. So, it's why a lot of people dropped out of that kind of job. But it's also, I was really fortunate in hindsight because it made me learn to visualize and it made me learn to shape the hardest way possible. So now, when I make a wake surfer, I had this amazing training and these amazing teachers showing me how to do it the hardest way possible. And then because I started so long ago, I got to learn how to design through the whole evolution of surfing. So the first boards I shaped were single fins, then twin fins, then tri fins, then playing with quads. And during that time period, the coolest thing happened. Guys started putting straps on boards and jumping waves because windsurfing was taking off. This is like, late 70s, early 80s. And one weekend I was home. I'd been up in college inland and had been skiing and didn't have fun skiing. I'd stand sideways. Every single thing I've ever done in my life was standing sideways. So I went home one weekend, made a little miniature surfboard, put windsurf foot straps on it, took it back up to Austin, Texas. I was going to University of Texas at the time, rode it behind the boat. I mean, the board was insanely fun, as you can imagine. It was the first of its kind. It took 2 weeks to make and lasted a whopping 15 minutes behind the boat before we just exploded it into a million pieces. But we knew we were onto something. And that stoke and that first day was the birth of wakeboarding in my life in Austin, Texas. Fast forward, I meet Tony at a trade show and go, holy shit, there's a crazy guy in San Diego doing the same thing I'm doing. So we're selling against each other. I had a better board, but he's an amazing salesman. We became friends, we joined forces, and we've never looked back.
2017 wake boards, so things have came a long ways. What is it about modern technology? Obviously, there's a lot of cool features in these new wake surfboards. What is it that you're most excited about with next year's lineup?
With this year's line, with the new lineup, the thing I'm the most excited about is that our performance boards have gone back to the closest they've ever been to what the original prototypes started out with in the first place. You know, there's a lot of boards online and in every wake surf line out there where they're compression molded, you know, at an entry level, their price point, at an entry level point, they're compression molded just like a wakeboard. They're super durable, but you don't have that performance envelope. But all the original boards have to start off with an idea that's hand shaped. Our top of the line boards, the pods, the keens, all of these, they're still hand shapes. You know, I'll make the master, we'll put it into the CAD files that actually can cut the blank. And so then when we replicate, say, Austin's board in a production setting, it's cut from the exact file that I used to create his board in the first place. The guy that's finished shaping that board, it's not me on every single board because, you know, I have to sleep and there's not enough hours in the day. But it's such a close tolerance replication of the original board because of the sophistication of CAD now. And then combine that with performance fabrics, the vector nets, the carbons, cool fins, and the performance envelope that you're able to get out of boards has never been higher.
So you approach Keenan and you tell him that you want to shape a pro model board. How do you work with the athlete and create a board that replicates his style and what he's looking for?
Well, I mean, Austin's a great example. You know, he's a great example of a guy that knows what he wants. He's incredibly talented, and he's super, super picky. So it draws out the process a little, but the end result is a great board that when people hop on it, they go, wow, you know, this new Keen skim is a great shape. With Austin in particular, you know, he's a professional skimboarder. He just won the Victoria Skim in Laguna, which is like the big, most prestigious event in skimboarding. With Austin, I'd heard about him. I'd heard about his talent. I'd seen a couple clips of him, and a mutual friend, you know, invited us out on a boat. He had his skim that he uses in the ocean. And there's a lot of things about that board that don't necessarily transfer to behind the boat. Sure, it'll work, but it's not the most ideal, perfect board. And he wanted to keep as much as that in his new shape, but at the same time, he wanted a board that everybody could enjoy. You know, Austin is doing everything he's doing behind a boat without fins. So the first step was, okay, Austin, the design challenge for you is to create a board that's magic for you, but that everybody else is going to enjoy. So we started off with his skim shape, kind of a rocker line that he liked. But one of the things that I initially realized is because of skimboarding, his skimboards have this radically exaggerated nose rocker that's dealing with the angle of the beach, because he has to skim down the slope of the beach and then connect with the water and come into the wave. So that's like forces his skimboards to have this hyper kick in the nose that would make it slow behind the boat. So we had to come up with a new rocker line, but still keep it similar in the tail. By the same token, out the tail, it was too flat and too low. And the board from rail to rail was dead flat. There was nothing because it was skimming across sand and dirt and then into the water. So I wanted to do something that was more hydrodynamically efficient. So I would just shape protos. I would start off with his templates, his general volume that he needed for the displacement, and blow through a whole bunch of prototypes where I would vary the concaves a little deeper, a little less, pull in the tail, sharpen the rails, and then we'd go out on the boat and test them. And it's amazing because a board that everyone else thought was great and they were ready to go to mass producing it, for Austin, we're down to like quarters of an inch in the tail because he's so sensitive in his field because he's riding finless. Everything in the board had to be perfect. So with his board, you know, we have a removable fin system on it, but it works great when you take the fins off because the edges are so tuned and the concave is so tuned. And that's from literally, you know, almost a year of testing with him. But then when we take it to market and we actually start producing it, it's a perfect replica of exactly the final proto that he said was magic.
Awesome. So I know one of the boards we've been really hyped on here is the newly redesigned Dart. Can you talk a little bit about the changes you made to the Dart from last year and how the board rides differently?
Yeah, now the Dart is an interesting board because on that one, Sean Watson came to us and said, hey, I've got a buddy who shaped a board for me. He's living in Hawaii. He's coming back to Florida, and his name's Josh Williams. And Josh had this really cool, deep single concave shape that was really efficient, and Watson liked it. So what we did, but it was kind of big. It was a little big. And so I got together with Josh. We did a little tweaking on his shape, kept it true to Josh's original shape. And Watson and everybody else were tested the board. That became the Dart. And then as time got on and we found out where, who was riding that board and who liked it the most, it was a combination of effortless glide and a real wide tail that would let the board boost air easy, but also not be an intimidating shape. I mean, the effortless glide makes it very forgiving. Say if you bog a rail, you can stay in the pocket, stay in the wave and not get pushed back because there's so much width and lift in the tail. It just keeps pushing the Dart forward. So what I wanted to do for 2017 is just give you a little bit more of that. So I ever so slightly widened the tail, dropped the tail rocker 1/8 of an inch, but lifted the nose rocker 1/4 of an inch. So when you're like in a super steep wave and you're coming down, you don't want to catch your outside nose rail. That's now more forgiving in the new Dart because of the lifted rocker line through the nose. But then the board doesn't slow down. It's actually faster because the tail rocker is a little lower in the back, but the wide tail helps it boost more. Basically taking a board that you already like and improving it without screwing it up.
The best just got better. Awesome. So yeah, there's a couple other new shapes besides the Keen, the Super Tramp, the Pod, and of course the El Guapo. Right. Could you run us through each of those and kind of talk about the main features of them, style of riding, who might be interested in each of those boards?
All right. Well, starting with the Super Tramp. The Super Tramp, it's a new skim shape. You'll notice that there's not the old Dom in the line. This is Dom's new Pro model. And the thing was, Dom always wanted to have a custom board. And his old board, it was in the different construction process. It was made more similar to a wakeboard. It was heavier. It's great. It's durable. It's user friendly, but it's not anywhere near the performance that you were getting a Keen. So what we did is basically went back to the drawing board. And the biggest thing with Super Tramp is a deep single concave through the middle of the board, but also in the deck. And so it's kind of like not as deep as a wake skate, but you just feel low down on this board. And of course it's lighter. And then you can see in the pictures behind you, there's a performance fabric built into the deck. What that is that's a combination. It's a special weave, which is a combination of vector net, which is the crisscross, and that adds torsional rigidity. And then all the black lines going nose to tail are carbon. So you've got longitudinal stiffness and torsional rigidity without a lot of extra weight. So if you like the last year's Dom, you're going to freak on the new Super Tramp because it's like, jumping out of a Hyundai and hopping in a Porsche. It's just such a huge step up. And then you'll notice, like you can see it on your side, see how the nose is blunted? What that's all about is, his old board was a much longer board. We clip the tip because you don't need that extra room. It's about redistribution of volume. So the Super Tramp comes in 51 and 55 and a 59-inch length because that's all you need. The blunted tail and the blunted nose just gets rid of that extra part of the board that isn't needed. And combined with the single concave, it creates a lot of lift, which actually let us make the Super Tramp not only shorter, but narrower than the old Dom. So it's just a so much faster board. And again, it has that effortless glide. So a big, big, big improvement, over the previous Dom and even over the TC Skim. that we had last year.
So last month we interviewed Dom on the Super Tramp, and one of the big things he talked about is that he needed to update his skim board because the waves keep getting bigger and better. Boats come stock with surf systems now. You can put aftermarket surf systems on older boats. So the waves in the last 5 years just keep getting bigger and better. How has that changed your design theory in how you shape boards?
That's a great question, because for me personally, and like I said, we're right across the street from the beach, and we're in a great place across the street from the beach, because this is like the epicenter, one of the epicenters of surf experimentation. So I'm really lucky to be able to see a lot of experimental stuff that's happening in surfing and other kind of shapes. And what for my own personal quiver, as well as what I'm seeing, is boards are getting shorter, but they're also getting narrower, which kind of seems counterintuitive, but it's all about this whole thing. I'm talking about redistribution of volume. When you start blunting the nose as well as the tail, you can make the board get narrower. So when the wake gets steeper, it lets you still be able to turn the board instead of always having it want to do this and be all washy. A super wide board, say something blown out to 22 inches, unless you're a really big guy or somebody with a really big foot, your leverage is off. If you shorten that up, but somehow can still have enough displacement, enough buoyancy to keep going, you end up with a board that reacts so much faster rail to rail. So across the whole line, like Dom's Super Tramp, it's up to 3/4 to an inch narrower than a board he's ridden before. Because the high five flip and stuff like that, where he's trying to do, and people doing kick flips behind wakes, it's pretty hard to do a kick flip when a board gets 22 inches wide. So not just with the Dom, but I mean the pod. The pod was, how do we soup up the Happy Pill? How do we take a board that's as fun to ride as the Happy Pill and turn it into a race car? And one of them was to thin it out, but also narrow it out. And you'll notice, you can see it behind you, the diamond tip shape of that green pod. It's the same kind of thing. If you were riding a 4.5 Happy Pill, you can get away with a 4.3 on a pod and have the same volume, but actually go faster. The board's thinner, the board's narrower, and it even has a little bit more rocker. But because it's so efficient, because the volume works, you're just able to get into tighter corners and turn tighter and turn quicker and have the board get more responsive, more like a skateboard underneath your feet.
Awesome. So yeah, the pod is definitely one of the best high performance boards in the lineup. Can you talk a little bit about some of the features? Some of the boards are coming with the carbon stringer or liquid force, and everyone we're seeing do the vector net Technora. Can you talk about both of those technologies and how they impact how the board rides?
Sure. I mean, you've seen, in all the boards out there, there's all this availability of these amazing performance fabrics that you can integrate into lamination of your board that'll give you all kinds of different properties. On the bottom, the stripes that you see, that's real carbon, and it's carbon lines running down the board. So it lets us make, for instance, on now on the deck, what you're pointing to is the vector net. And the vector net is a material that will handle impact and also torsional rigidity. So it allows me to thin out the tail, but not have it twist. And it also helps with some heel impact that you'll have on the rear pad. On the front foot, if you look up to where the front pad is, it's kind of hard to tell in that picture, but you'll see this kind of white crisscross material in the layup. That material is called a negra, and it's a polypropylene fabric. That same thing, it acts as an impact absorber. So it's a way of keeping the board light, but also adding a little bit of support underneath your feet without sacrificing weight. On the bottom of the board, there's the carbon stripes. That's a carbon tape that's laid into the glass. It allows us to put a thinner stringer in the board to reduce the weight, but still have the board be stiff. So depending on which board we're talking about, whether it's a pod or a dart or Austin's board, Austin's is 100% carbon, tip to tail, rail to rail on the top. And all of these are the opportunities that we have with making these shapes. shapes. It's awesome. And we can change it too. You know, we're constantly experimenting. You know, Dom is always testing new protos. You know, we're testing new stuff. I mean, we're already working on new crazy stuff with Austin, where here's a fabric that might pull a half a pound out of your board. Test it. So it allows us to always keep the line fresh.
Cool. So yeah, talking about experiments and keeping the line fresh, I think the one that immediately stands out would of course be the El Guapo, the new longboard. So much different than all the other boards in the lineup and a lot different than what anyone else is doing. Could you talk a little bit about how did that idea come about? How do you create a longboard to ride behind the boat?
I know, it's a trip, huh?
Yeah, we wrote it. It's a lot of fun. So
the thing about the Guapo, I mean, it's a mini longboard, so but it's a longboard, doesn't fit in the screen, but you know, it's 5'2" though, instead of 9'0". And basically on what I did on the Guapo is I've got this magic longboard and I've loved it. And anybody that's ever got on it has just said, wow. And I made it with a friend years ago. We glassed it special. Basically, it was an experiment to just try to make the coolest longboard that we could make. And money wasn't any object because we were doing all the labor ourselves. And the guy I was working with was one of the guys that taught me to shape when I was a kid. I've had that board for years. It's almost fallen apart by now, but I had all the data. And I had this idea like, wow, is that translatable behind a boat? It seems weird to go from 9'0" to 5'2". But I just started playing, you know, the first ones didn't work at all. And then once we kind of tweaked the rocker and adjusted it, we just hit this magic spot where it was super fun to ride. It stayed in the wave, but it really stayed in the wave if you were in the wake, if you were either in the middle of the board, you know, because we got EVA all over the board. But, you know, if you were in the middle of the board, or even if you're up here, the board just keeps gliding. Because just like longboards designed to nose ride, there's a big old concave pocket under the nose that acts to create lift, but create lift in a very specific area. And that's something that's not in any other wake surfer that we make, because, you know, they're like performance shortboards scaled down. For a performance longboard scaled down, you can nose ride behind a boat. But then, you know, at the other end, we put this fin box and we allow you to, you know, you got a fin that you can move fore and aft. So you're basically changing the turning radius of the board by yourself. You know, if you want to draw out your turns, you push the fin back to the tail and your turns get drawn out. If you want to have this thing be really loose, I mean, see, that fin can go all the way up to here. And that gets your back foot. You can actually get your back foot behind the fin. So it allows you to do 360s. It allows you to really loosen up the board. And it was such a different feeling behind the boat than any of the other boards. It needed to exist for its own reason. It was a different kind of fun, and it put a smile on everybody's face. And yeah, we were like, this one's a keeper too. So yeah, that's we
were all stoked on it. We went and demoed him a couple weeks ago, and it was a refreshing change of pace from all the other boards. I think everyone had a smile on with the El Guapo.
Boards, we started putting a little logo on the bottom of the Guapo, and a couple other boards are online, wake boards and cable boards, where its little logo is Fun Unlimited series. And the cool thing about the Guapo, as well as this weird board behind me, which is actually a directional wakeboard, kind of little blink back to the past, hint to the future. It's all about fun. If you don't have the most perfect boat, you know, if you're new, if the wake is small, there's boards that you can ride and still have a blast. And the Guapo fits into that. You know, it's not only can you learn on it, you can have fun on it behind a whole bunch of different boats. So it's Fun Unlimited series, and that's the whole reason of putting these boards in. Every single board isn't about going out there and busting giant air. and trying to, look like you're winning a pro contest. Some of them are just about looking like you're having more fun than anybody else on the water that day.
Can you talk about the new fins and the difference in riding one of those versus a traditional plastic fin?
Yeah, I'm going to grab one of those fins real quick so I can. So like, here's the fin that you're referring to. It comes standard on the pod. Boom. And you can see it's honeycomb inside, and then carbon reinforcement in the base. And then, this is the fiberglass laminations that are keeping the whole thing together. So, this is state-of-the-art, a performance surf fin, but it's scaled and resized to what you need behind a boat if you're wake surfing. This particular fin, we make it in 3 sizes, and it's fitted up either on the pod or on our new carbon Happy Pill, and also available as an accessory that'll go on any board. The dart, it'll fit on the dart, it'll fit on the pills. You could even put it in Austin's board. I wouldn't suggest it because it's skim board, but it's this FCS fin system, interchangeable. But what it does, a fin like this, it works so much better than a plastic fin. It costs more money because it's harder to make, but it's got performance in it that you can see. The honeycomb keeps the fin light. This is a super light fin because this is basically filling the fin with air. It's just taking up space. The carbon at the bottom keeps the base of the fin stiff, and then it stops at a certain point because you still want to be able to flex the fin. Like you can load this thing up and have snap back, so you feel it. Like what if if you're an intermediate to advanced rider and you hop on one of these fins after you've ridden plastic and you really push it, especially if you're riding, you got to be aggressively riding surf style, and then it really lights up. It makes the board, when you wade into a turn and then unweight, the fin pops back a little and it gives you a little extra squirt out of turns, and they look awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's just, it's not just about looking cool, they actually work and they make your board ride better. So we're going to expand this, and like I said, it's also an accessory that you can upgrade, an existing board with this.
The Happy Pill's been a marquee board in the lineup for a couple years now. One of our favorite boards, really fun, playful shape, and you guys decided to beef it up for 2017 and give it a carbon laminate. So can you talk a little bit about that and the performance differences with this model?
Okay, so the thing with the carbon Happy Pill is, and I was really stoked. Happy Pill got Wake Surfer of the Year. Now is announced this week, I think, on Wake World, and we love the shape. I mean, this is another one where I met a really great shaper, super cool guy that was working on these boards called Mini Simmons. He's actually the creator of the Mini Simmons. His name's Joe Baguesse. And he made me a custom board, a little 5.2 that I surf. And after falling in love with it and riding it a while, I instantly knew I had to try to make some cool version of that for behind the boat. So I played with the bottom contours. Obviously, there's a lot of rocker adjustment and tweaking that had to happen to make it, be a proper wake surfer. And I made it a lot thinner, narrower, and shorter. That became the Happy Pill. The more we rode the Happy Pill, the more we wanted to ride a performance version of it. This cloth, as you see, this blue cloth, you'll see kind of a hexagonal pattern in it. This is a special weave that we actually came up with ourselves. We went to the place where the looms are, where they're weaving this fabric. And the idea was, I don't need carbon everywhere on a board that's this thick. There's already enough volume, enough mass, so where it's not twisting. But since there isn't a stringer in this board, if the carbon was running nose to tail, that would stiffen it up. That would act as a stringer. And maybe we could make a board that would be light, where we combine the two, but not have it be a solid black, all carbon board that would be super expensive and maybe not even needed. So we ran colored fiber in the transverse direction, all the blues that you're seeing. And And in the longitudinal direction, it's all carbon. Every strand running nose to tail is carbon. All the strands running rail to rail is colored polyester fiber. And, we trademarked it, patented it, and then color coded it for each size. So if you're on the 4.0 carbon pill, it's yellow. The 4.5, which I ride, is red. And then the 4.10, this is actually a test that says 4.5, but the 4.10 is going to be this blue. And then the 5.2 is a green. And, we're stoked on it because it's taken about 1.5 pounds out of the happy pill, and the board just flies. And then when you mate it with this cool fin that I just talked about, you take this board that's a super user-friendly board, and once again turn it back into a rocket ship, just like the original proto.
Awesome. So you've redesigned the top. You've the happy pill. Are there any other inputs that you plan on redesigning or beefing up in the future?
All of them. I mean, that's the cool thing about the group of boards, that you're talking about. All of them, they're all boards that are constantly in evolution. We're kind of letting out a dirty secret, but you're probably going to want to ask me what's my favorite board. And it's like the one I'm working on now. And, until I'm done with that, and then it'll be the next one, because we have this, because I grew up shaping before I had a real job, and because my real job now is shaping, and I'm at the beach, and my shaping bay is downstairs from where I'm talking to you. Any idea we come up with, as weird as it is, as crazy as it may sound, we can make it and go out and ride it. And if we hate it, no one ever sees it again. If we love it, it becomes the pod or something like that. And by the time the pod is in your shop, you should see the trippy stuff we're working on now. I mean, it's just this constant stoke because, it's like I tell my wife, when I was single, I had one surfboard. I'm married now. I got 35 surfboards. That's how I handle monogamy. It's no different with wake surfing. I got so many wake surfers. It's like there's all the boards that everyone's tripping over in the boat, and then there's all the boards that are in the car that we get to stop and go back to because everybody wants to try something new, and there's no rules. It's if it feels right, it is right. So everybody doesn't want the same board, and everybody doesn't like the same board, and that's great. When somebody comes up and says, "Hey, I rode the happy pill, and I'm not sure that I liked it. It was fun to ride, but man, I want a board that's faster." That doesn't bum me out. That stokes me because I can show them the pod. I can put them on this, or I can say, "Hey, wait until next month. You'll freak out on what's going to come out." And that's the whole thing about LF. Our motto from day one's been relentless innovation. We're rebels. We wanted the whole company was literally Liquid Force was started on a dare, and the dare's paid off, and that energy and that relentless stoke and always the belief that we can always make a better board is what drives us to always experiment. And being a shaper, there's nobody to tell me I can't go downstairs and make something weird tonight.
Where do you find inspiration for the new shapes? Where do you think these ideas? What is the process to actually get products? How long does it take to make a prototype? How soon can you be out on the water trying it? Kind of take us through that process.
Okay, so you dropped out, out just a bit, but I heard I think the front end of it was, where's the inspiration come from? Where do the ideas come from, right? So, well, shoot, the ideas come from everywhere. I'm pretty scatterbrained, so I can, handle multiple conversations and infinite input at any one time. But that's the thing. The ideas come from everywhere. Obviously, Austin Keene's board, the idea came from Austin Keene. He comes in and says, hey man, you know, I want to ride for you. I want to ride with you. I want this magic board. I'm a skimboarder, and here's what I ride in the ocean. So everything about Austin's was a very focused design mission. And we know where we wanted to go. Some of them, like the pod, that was specific because the Happy Pill used to be a custom shape. Then we started making it in the new construction where it's still a CNC DPS core, but it's a molded outer skin. So it is molded. And once we did that, we knew there was a gap in the line. And I always wanted to make a souped up version of the Happy Pill. So that was my leap off point for the pod. Sometimes the ideas for some of these boards is, you know, I'll go out and borrow somebody's surfboard or ride some magic board or see some idea, and it'll tweak my brain to go, why don't we try that, you know, on a surfer, or reinterpret that. And then it'll be things that have nothing to do with surfing or nothing to do with wake surfing even. It'll be, you know, a line you see a guy draw on a snowboard or even skateboarding, you know. My personal feeling is as wake surfing evolves, the difference between skim and wake, and skim and surf, is going to get less and less. Boards are going to get more blunted, and they're basically going to become closer to skateboards. Because like with Austin, for instance, you know, you see that guy riding, and obviously he's a skimmer. I mean, he rides without a fin. Happy Pill is laying in the boat, and completely different from what he rides, but cool looking board nonetheless. He goes, hey, can I check it out? Yeah, give him the 4.0. All 4 fins are in place on this Happy Pill. Hits the lip, busts an air reverse, lands it, comes back down, and then throws a big spin with all 4 fins in, and then looks back and goes, hey, this thing's cool. I mean, so the inspirations are everywhere. And with guys like Austin, guys like Dom, you know, Dom going out and saying, I need a board I want to do a kickflip on. That in and of itself, creating a board to maybe do a maneuver that the products out there at the time don't let you do. You know, we were talking earlier about making boards narrower that allow you to do certain kind of moves. He's trying to do a kickflip and getting hit in the nuts more than anything else because his board's too wide. Once we started playing with width, he could start doing maneuvers that he otherwise, it was virtually impossible to do if the board's too wide. He was actually more advanced in the equipment he was on. So that's an inspiration. So yeah, it's basically keeping your eyes and ears and you know, nose open to everything out there, because the ideas can come from anybody and from anywhere.
How long does it take you before you can get a prototype made and go out and try it? And then how many iterations does, you know, a board go through before it's finalized and put into the lineup?
Okay, the first part of the question is to have the idea and then go, okay, let's make a proto. I mean, I can shape a board in a day, glass it in a week. So, you know, in a week and a half, 2 weeks time, we can go from an idea to being on the water. And that's a one-off board, but, you know, that's the beginning of the actual on the water testing process. Then the thing is, you know, if you guys haven't met Tony Finn, he wants stuff to show people. And he's like, let go of it. Let's turn it into a board. And I'm a shaper. I'm never satisfied, ever. So the iterations really are until when do you say, you know, when's it done? Like with Austin, everybody at Liquid Force on his board in particular, I thought I was done. He comes back after riding all these boards. We've even got pre-orders for this board. And he comes back and goes, man, can you pull in the tail a little? And I look at him, because we had literally, like I said, gone through probably, you know, a year of testing. And a 1/4 of an inch tweak made a huge difference to him. And it's his board, you know, so I'm going to respect that, and I respect his talent, his feedback. So that iteration, how many iterations, how much time? It could be as little as 2 boards and 2 months. And it could be as much as hey, it's not ready yet, and we can't release it this year, and you're not going to see it till 2018 because we've got to go back to the drawing board, or it's not good enough. It's cool, but I know we can make it better. So it's really a function of what are we trying to achieve and who's involved in that design process. How picky is the athlete, and how far does he want to push that design idea? So I've taken anywhere from, hey, here's an idea, and let's start making, hundreds of them. And that took 2 months to, hey, here's an idea. And I know it's been 2 years, but I'm still working on that idea. And eventually you're going to see it, but it's not ready yet.
Cool. So we have a question from our viewer, Jason, on fin sizes. Okay. So if you're getting new fins for your wake surfboard and you can choose between a 2.5, 3.0, and a 4.0. Can you talk a little bit about how the sizes make a difference? Is one better for beginners, more advanced riders? How will it change the board's ride on the water?
Okay. Yeah, the simplest thing right out of the gate is the bigger the fin, the more control. So typically, the more of a beginner you are, you can appreciate that. If it's surf style, you can appreciate that a larger fin is going to be more stable. And even for a skim style board, if you took Austin Keene's board and you put a larger fin on it, it would be less slippery. So it'll help you learn. Now, what happens is as the fin gets bigger, it also has more drag, so it can make your board slower. And if you ride light-footed, or you want the board to be slippery because you want to do big spins, or if you're surf style, you want to blow out the tail and easily do 360s, then you want to make the fin smaller. And as you make the fin smaller, there's less drag. Your board is going to recover from moves and get back into the push of the wake easier. But the sacrifice is that you also have to be on your game. The board could wash out because you've reduced the size of your controlling surface because it's gone from 3 to 2.5 to 2. So it's really personal preference, but bigger is more control but slower, and smaller is faster and looser.
Awesome.
That's the trade-off.
Cool. So I got another viewer question from Mike. He wants to start off first by saying he loves his Dom Pro, and then he was wondering if any of the new boards have a slotted channel in the tail to help get control while riding revert or switch for skim style.
Well, okay, so for the Dom Pro actually has slots too in the nose. So when you flip it around, there's a little bit of channeling in the nose that helps. But slots through the tail, I've got 3 new boards this year built exactly like the Dom that are, they have a deep slot going through the tail. For kids, it's a board called the Grommy. It comes in a 46-inch length. So it's super small, slot through the tail, great direct, it'll hold its direction even with a little fin. Then we step up to, big guy size, adult size, and the new Swami comes in a 53 and a 58. And so that has a deep slot going through the tail. It lets you get away with a really small fin. And you have still a controlling surface, but without the drag of a big fin. So awesome. Those would be my boards.
Cool. So then we have a question from Catherine. She's wondering what your suggestion would be for a beginner board, someone that's just learning to go up and wake surf.
Would that be both either or, surf or skim?
Yeah, just learning to wake surf. What would you put someone on in the 2017 lineup?
Okay. If you're a kid, Grommy 46, because it's designed for a kid. I've got kids, Tony's got kids. One of our top reps that's been competing in contests and putting on events forever, Chris Bank, he's got tons of kids. And so, we had a great test pool of stoked riders and kids that surf riding this board, and that's what the Grommy is all about. At 46 inches, it's easy to ride, easy to get up on, in the right size. Like if you're adult size, the Swami 53 and 58, very easy to ride, very easy to stay in the wake, because for a skim, very efficient shape. They carry their momentum. effortlessly. And then when you start wanting to do threes, the fins are small, or you can take them off and it's real nice to slip around. For a total beginner surf style, wants to just get in and try it out, we replaced our fish with a new shape called the Rocket. And the Rocket is, like I said, same thing, taking that width and reducing it. So I took the fish and made it narrower, even made it shorter, but still was able to make a board even more efficient than the fish by replacing the bottom that was on the fish with a deep single concave. So the rocker line nose to tail on the new Rocket is a straighter, faster rocker line than our old fish. So you end up with a board that's stable, glides really easy, but then once you get up and you're going, it'll also let you start learning to turn really easily because it's not a super wide surf style board. It's less than 22 inches, less than 21 inches, even at a 5'4". So those would be my boards: Rocket for beginner surf style, and the Swamis and Gramis for beginner skim style.
Cool. So to wrap it up, I kind of want to go back to, you talked earlier about having a quiver of wake surf boards and having and some in the car. I think that's one thing we've noticed a lot recently is maybe 2-3 years ago, someone would have one wake surf board for the entire boat, where a lot more people now are, having 2, 3, maybe 4 or 5 boards for different size riders, different styles. Can you talk a little bit about kind of having specialty boards or how important it is to have, maybe more than one board for different people on the boat?
Absolutely. I mean, would you go out partying with all your buddies with just one chick?
No.
I mean, exactly. I mean, and so why? I mean, and the thing is, nobody's going to get in a fight over a wake surfer. So why not have a bunch of them in the boat? And the coolest thing is, it's like, I got to have a blonde, a brunette, a redhead, everybody in the boat. And the thing is, because wake surfing is all about what feels right to you could be completely different from me. But we're going to have the same money. And there's no way you're going to be as satisfied as I'm going to be if everybody's forced to ride the same board. And that's not just because you're skinnier than I am. I mean, could have a completely different approach. You might want to be focusing on busting airs. The other guy says, man, I just want to cruise, So there's the guapo and the pod couldn't be any more different, and they couldn't be any more necessary in your boat for different kinds of fun. And that's the beauty of a quiver. I mean, I never drive to the beach with less than 2 or 3 surfboards in the back of my car, because it's not just about what the waves are like. It's about what state of mind are you in? Like, do you want to cruise? Do you want to work on threes today? Do you want to bust airs? Different boards are going to take you different places, and you should share and learn, and it'll help you progress. The best thing to do to become a better wake surfer is ride a bunch of different boards and ride with a bunch of different people, because that teaches you and it broadens your perspective and horizons.
Awesome. So we have our final viewer question. Could you just tell us what your boat setup is, what the boat you've been riding behind this summer, maybe kind of like if you were to go out today, what would be the one board you would grab first, and then also what speed do you ride at and maybe your ballast setup?
So for us, is we have a liquid force. We have a liquid force edition Axis, and that's our boat, and we love it. Now on our lagoon, right around from the office, there's a size restriction, so we're on the 22 axis because of the size restriction. Whenever I can get on anything bigger, any bigger boat than that, if we get down to Mission Bay and we're getting behind 24s or any of the really huge boats, that's a joy. And obviously, anytime I go ride with Watson and I'm behind his boats, his G23s and all, I mean, like I said, just like having different boards, having different boats is where it's at. For us, it's the LF edition Axis, 22 foot, because it's our team boat and it's allowed on our lagoon, and it makes an awesome wake. Now, of course, we load it down, but I mean, having Surfgate just makes, I mean, the fact that, you know, I'm regular foot and Tony's goofy foot, and he always wants to come ride with us. Almost everybody in R&D is a regular foot, but Surfgate allows us to, you know, keep Tony happy, but without slowing down the pace. So that's pretty much our boat setup. For boards, I mean, for me, my favorite board in the line that I ride is the pod, the 4-3 pod. And for skim, I really like Austin's. I ride Austin's in a 56, and I ride Dom's, the Super Tramp, in the 55. And, you know, I can switch back and forth on those two. And like I said, of course, usually my favorite board is the prototype that I'm bringing that day that we're going to play around with.
Awesome. So yeah, we're wrapping up here. Time's quickly ending. Can't believe how quickly an hour went by, but really appreciate you tuning in and giving us the lowdown on everything for next year. Is there anything else you want to add?
Yeah, just the fact that you guys are tuning in and you're that stoked on wake surfing and you want to hear this kind of information, man, spread that stoke. Let people know what they're missing out on. Get them out behind your boat and teach somebody to wake surf this year. You know, you'll make a new friend, but you'll also spread the love, because it's a blast, you know, and anyone can do it. And then and then when you have a story like that, or you have an idea, or you have a great experience, let us know. Or, you know, let us know if you want something more out of a board. I mean, like I said earlier, the ideas can come from anywhere, and hopefully there's going to be some killer idea from somebody that was in this webinar that works its way back to me. And then in 2018 or 2019, you're going to see that board, and I'll have to say thank you and send whoever that is some free boards. So let's make it happen.
All right, we'll send them your email.
All right, it's wakeguru@AOL.com. You know, I think one of the first guys ever to have AOL, me and my parents.
Still got it. So awesome, Jimmy. Well, we appreciate you tuning in, and we're stoked on the lineup for next year, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you, Chad.